I'm Tracy E. Gilchrist, and this is Equal Entertainment. Hollywood is on strike. Actors are now joining writers on the picket lines. SAG-AFRA could not reach a deal with studios and streaming services before the deadline. SAG President Fran Drescher even went as far as to say the talks were insulting and disrespectful. The actors joined the more than 11,000 WGA members who have been on strike since May. It's the first time since 1960 that both actors and writers have walked off the job. The group representing the studios called the decision disappointing. The Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers says it offered historic pay and residual increases, a boost to pension and health benefits, audition protections, and an AI proposal that protects actors. Meanwhile, the 75th Emmy Award nominations are out, and it wasn't a great year for diversity, especially in the lead categories. Pedro Pascal is the first Latino nominated as lead actor in a drama in more than 2 decades. He was the only minority nominee in any of the drama series categories. Netflix led streamers with 103 nominations. Succession is leading the way with 27 noms, followed by Ted Lasso and The Last of Us, while The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, Abbott Elementary, and The White Lotus also claimed recognition. Some projects and performances that were overlooked included Dead Ringers, A League of Their Own, Interview with the Vampire, The Other Two, and P-Valley, all which feature LGBTQ+ visibility and stars. The Queen of Percussion, Sheila E., is the latest artist to receive a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. She was honored alongside fellow drummer Ringo Starr, Jimmy Jam, and the artist Her. Sheila E. was most famous for her work with Prince and their Purple Rain recording sessions in the 1980s. She released a number of solo albums in addition to producing, arranging, performing, and acting. Her most famous single, The Glamorous Life, reached the top spot on the Billboard Dance Chart and number 7 on the Hot 100. Actor and filmmaker Ann Masse is one of the first people to come forward about Harvey Weinstein and ultimately helped spark the Me Too movement. I spoke with her about Hire Survivors Hollywood, an initiative working to end retaliation against survivors of sexual violence, as well as her identity as a bisexual woman and as an invisibly disabled person.
And what was really tricky for me and really sort of messed with my head is when I was assaulted and sexually harassed by Harvey Weinstein, I didn't feel like I could say or do anything. I was a young actor. I was actually interviewing to be a nanny for his children, but he knew I was an actor, and he talked to me about my acting in the interview, which I thought was really inappropriate. And it was so terrifying and so unexpected. I mean, you don't expect sexual assault, but it wasn't like I was on a date with this person or there was anything even suggesting that this person might try to sexualize me in any way. I was at a job interview, and I just felt like I had no recourse to action. And so I told my mom, and over the years I told a couple of close family members like my husband, and that was it. But it messed with me so much. It terrified me. Every audition I had for acting, every job interview I went on, I was terrified. I stopped looking for film and TV work. I stopped looking for an agent. It just really cost me so much time. It affected my health. We know, right? The impacts of sexual violence. And it was really hard for me to sit with this secret, essentially, because I knew he was still working and I knew he was still celebrated. And every time I'd see him on television, I'd feel sick to my stomach and I'd have a panic attack. But I just felt so disempowered. And so when the first New York Times story came out, it was the first time I realized in almost 10 years that this was something that was happening all the time. I had no idea. I had never heard any rumors. I didn't know that he was doing this sort of serially and ritualistically. And so I felt like for the first time I could tell my story. Mm. And I had initially decided I'd just post it on my Facebook and my friends and family would see it and it would be a weight off my chest. But I eventually ended up speaking to the press. I say eventually, it was within that first week. It all happened very quickly. Mm. And it changed my life, and in good ways and bad ways. It was incredible to me that the power of all of these voices meant that people finally started paying attention, that there was some accountability happening. But it also revealed to me that still typically wasn't happening. You know, we see it now. There are still people in positions of power who we know are abusive. There are people who have even less power than I had who still feel like they can't speak up. And when I did speak up, my biggest fear came true, which is I was terrified that if I told my story, I would be retaliated against. I would not be able to have a career. And my career was massively harmed by sharing this story.
Mm.
And it wasn't just me. I started talking about it when it started happening to me, and people came to me and said, "Hey, I just got dropped from this pilot. I just lost my agent. I have no auditions." And this is people at every level,
Yeah.
award winners and people like me and people who were just coming up. And it inspired me to start trying to really do something.
Emmy award-winning director Darisha Kai is telling the new story of love and acceptance of the queer community. The documentary is called Mama Bears, and it follows the Free Hugs movement and a few of the conservative Christian women within the group who are fighting for LGBTQ+ equality with ferocity. But it wasn't always that way, and Darisha tells me that the key to the fight could be just a little bit of motherly love. I want to begin with asking you a little bit about how this documentary came to be. I know that you kind of reached out to some folks about that, and I'd love to hear about that.
So initially, I found out about the Mama Bears through an article that the Huffington Post had done on Kimberly and Kai Shapley's fight for Kai to use a girls' bathroom in Pearland, Texas.
Mhm.
And in that article, Kimberly mentioned the Mama Bears and said that that's how she found the strength that she needed to go from being a Tea Party Republican to an LGBTQ activist, ally, and advocate. And she said that there were about 2,000 moms in the group at the time. That was 2017. And I was intrigued by the number. I thought it was a huge number. Of course, now there's over 30,000 moms, Mama Bears. But at the time, it was like, wow, I was very impressed. And so I reached out to Susan Cottrell and Liz Dyer, who were running two different Mama Bear groups, and said, I'm interested in these women because I think that they are heroic, that the journey from being a conservative Christian to being an LGBTQ advocate is quite a distance, and it takes a lot. And so I thought that, they were very heroic because, we don't like to change. And that kind of transformation requires deep, profound changes. So I was impressed with them, and I remain so.
I screened this film last year, and now it's on PBS.
Yes.
And in the time since I screened it and now, there are a few hundred more anti-LGBTQ+ bills around the country, and drag shows are being banned, and our histories are being erased. And would you talk about what it feels like to watch this film? In some ways, I mean, it's great that it's there, but it's also, kind of really upsetting that this film is now gaining more importance and relevance because of the increased attacks on LGBTQ+ people.
Well, from the beginning, that's part of the reason that I made it, because of the attacks, and that attacks had started when I started the film in 2017. I mean, they've never really ended.
Right.
We got some great legislation to protect our rights, but the far right has been attacking the LGBTQ+ community all along. And what's happened is this shift in terms of state legislatures where they are in control now and they can do what they want. That's the difference, right? But if they could have passed those laws years ago, believe me, they would have. And also right now, I think that they're part of a bigger scheme, bigger plan to distract people from other things that are happening. So anyway, how it feels to have the film out in this climate is that in some ways it's deeply gratifying because this is the right film for this time, or one of the right films.
Mama Bears is streaming now on PBS. It's the survival of not the fittest anymore, but survival of the thickest is the latest Netflix series, and it recently dazzled at the New York premiere. The series follows Mavis, a plus-size woman in New York City who finds herself newly single and has to start from scratch. The series is being praised for its diversity and inclusivity, and it's streaming now on Netflix. It's time to celebrate a big birthday in Los Angeles, but not for a celebrity. It's for the iconic Hollywood sign. The famous Hollywood sign is turning 100 years old. The sign was first intended to attract homebuyers to a new development called Hollywoodland back in 1923. It cost $21,000 to build, or $370,000 in today's dollars. In 1949, the land was removed, leading to the now famous Hollywood sign. In 2022, the sign underwent a renovation ahead of the big birthday. You can watch the Advocate Channel live by downloading our app in the Apple or Google Play Store. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel. For the Advocate Channel, I'm Tracy E. Gilchrist, and thank you for watching.